Vijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Shahagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kantan Hostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Krisha Bhanu Sute Devi Pranamani Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patita Nam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vaishnava Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Well, thank you very much, Gita Govinda. Maybe as housekeeping, first, should we fill up this carpet space, because generally we hear more people may come?
Yeah.
You came first, so you get the carpet space. Yeah, if you can find a place for the harmonium where it's not using prime real estate. You could put it on the table for that matter. Good. Thank you.
By the way, welcome to all of you, and especially to our seniors here. Uddhava, thank you for coming. Sir, please come.
And the second housekeeping item is if you would check your phone and see that it's in silent mode.
Silent mode.
Then what I thought I would talk about today actually is one of Srila Prabhupada's books, and that's Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Because today is the... Parthasarthi, would you like to sit someplace? Or? Okay. Today is the Rama Akadashi, and this is the day on which Srila Prabhupada completed his translation and commentary of Chaitanya Charitamrita. 1974. So that's like 51 years ago. Is that right? Yeah, November 1974. In fact, we could, if we like, we could read from Prabhupada's closing words from Chaitanya Charitamrita. Should we do that?
Yes.
Yeah, they're really wonderful. Now, actually, on my phone, I have them. Yeah. These are Prabhupada's concluding words. Today, Sunday, November 10th, 1974, corresponding to the 10th of Kartik Chaitanya era, 488, the 11th day of the dark fortnight, Rama Ekadashi. We have now finished the English translation of Sri Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in accordance with the authorized order of His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Goswami Maharaj, my beloved eternal spiritual master, guide, and friend. Although, according to material vision, His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada passed away from this material world on the last day of December 1936, I still consider His Divine Grace to be always present with me by His Vani, His words. There are two ways of association, by Vani and by Vapu. Vani means words, and Vapu means physical presence. Physical presence is sometimes appreciable and sometimes not. But Vani continues to exist eternally. Therefore, we must take advantage of the Vani, not the physical presence. The Bhagavad Gita, for example, is the Vani of Lord Krishna. Although Krishna was personally present 5,000 years ago and is no longer physically present from the materialistic point of view, the Bhagavad Gita continues. In this connection, we may call to memory the time when I was fortunate enough to meet His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, sometime in the year 1922. Srila Prabhupada had come to Calcutta from Sri Dham Mayapur to start the missionary activities of the Gaudiya Math. He was sitting in a house at Ultadanga when, through the inducement of an intimate friend, the late Sriman Narendranath Mullik, I had the opportunity to meet His Divine Grace for the first time. I do not remember the actual date of the meeting, but at that time I was one of the managers of Dr. Bose's laboratory in Calcutta. I was a newly married young man, addicted to Gandhi's movement, and dressed in khadi. Khadi is the homespun cloth advocated by Gandhi ji. Fortunately, even at our first meeting, His Divine Grace advised me to preach the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English in the Western countries. Because at that time I was a complete nationalist, a follower of Mahatma Gandhi's, I submitted to His Divine Grace that unless our country were freed from foreign subjugation, no one would hear the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu seriously. Of course, we had some argument on this subject, but at last I was defeated and convinced that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's message is the only panacea for suffering humanity. I was also convinced that the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was then in the hands of a very expert devotee, and that surely the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would spread all over the world. I could not, however, immediately take up his instructions to preach, but I took his words very seriously and was always thinking of how to execute his order, although I was quite unfit to do so. In this way, I passed my life as a householder until 1950, when I retired from family life as a vanaprastha. with no companion, I loitered here and there until 1958, when I took sannyas. Then I was completely ready to discharge the order of my spiritual master. Previously, in 1936, just before His Divine Grace passed away at Jagannath Puri, I wrote him a letter asking what I could do to serve him. In reply, he wrote me a letter dated 13 December 1936, ordering me, in the same way, to preach in English the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as I had heard it from him. After he passed away, I started the fortnightly magazine, Back to Godhead, sometime in 1944, and tried to spread the cult of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through this magazine. After I took sannyas, a well-wishing friend suggested that I write books instead of magazines. Magazines, he said, might be thrown away, but books remain perpetually. Then I attempted to write Srimad Bhagavatam. Before that, when I was a householder, I had written on Srimad Bhagavad Gita and had completed about 1,100 pages. But somehow or other the manuscript was stolen. In any case, when I had published Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, in 3 volumes in India, I thought of going to the USA. By the mercy of His Divine Grace, I was able to come to New York on September 17th, 1965. Since then, I have translated many books, including Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, a summary, and many others. In the meantime, I was induced to translate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and publish it in an elaborate version. In his leisure time and later life, His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur would simply read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. It was his favorite book. He used to say that there would be a time when foreigners would learn the Bengali language to read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. The work on this translation began about 18 months ago. Now, by the grace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it is finished. In this connection, I have to thank my American disciples, especially Sriman Pradumna Das Adhikari, Sriman Nitai Das Adhikari, Sriman Jayadvaita Das Brahmachari, and many other boys and girls who are sincerely helping me in writing, editing, and publishing all these literatures. Shall I keep reading? Yeah. I think that His Divine Grace, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, is always seeing my activities and guiding me within my heart by His words. As it is said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kaviye. Spiritual inspiration comes from within the heart, wherein the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in His Paramatma feature, is always sitting with all his devotees and associates. It is to be admitted that whatever translation work I have done is through the inspiration of my spiritual master, because personally I am most insignificant and incompetent to do this materially impossible work. I do not think myself a very learned scholar, but I have full faith in the service of my spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. If there is any credit in my activities, it is all due to His Divine Grace. Certainly, if His Divine Grace were physically present at this time, it would have been a great occasion for jubilation. But even though He is not physically present, I am confident that He is very much pleased by this work of translation. He was very fond of seeing many books published to spread the Krishna consciousness movement. Therefore, our society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, has been formed to execute the order of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and His Divine Grace, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. It is my wish that devotees of Lord Chaitanya all over the world enjoy this translation, and I am glad to express my gratitude to the learned men in the Western countries who are so pleased with my work that they are ordering in advance all my books that will be published in the future. On this occasion, therefore, I request my disciples who are determined to help me in this work to continue their cooperation fully, so that philosophers, scholars, religionists, and people in general all over the world will benefit by reading our transcendental literatures, such as Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, dated November 10th, 1974, at the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, Hare Krishna Land, Juhu, Bombay. Hi. It's, in fact, a wonderful accomplishment and a wonderful contribution for us, this Chaitanya Charitamrita. Is everyone familiar with Chaitanya Charitamrita? Yes, 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 yes. Okay, so I won't say too much about it. Yes?
Sorry, I only know the name.
You only know the name?
Yes.
All right, let's briefly. Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is a biographical account of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who began this Sankirtan movement of chanting Hare Krishna. There were previous biographies, but and I suppose later biographies, but Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita is especially significant because it presents in depth the teachings of Lord Chaitanya as well as his activities. It's written in Bengali, and it's, what shall we say? Oh, you heard that it was the favorite book of Srila Prabhupada's spiritual master, and it's considered a postgraduate study of Krishna consciousness. Bhagavad Gita is our beginning study, and Srimad Bhagavatam is more advanced, and still more advanced is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. One doesn't need to wait to finish the other books before tasting Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. But one who reads Chaitanya Charitamrita will find a wealth of spiritual understanding, the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who taught by his personal example, and many topics discussed in depth by the author, Sri Krishnas Kaviraj Goswami. This book it's interesting to see the books that Srila Prabhupada chose to translate, because there's lots of books out there in the Krishna consciousness tradition. But Srila Prabhupada selected especially Bhagavad Gita, and then Srimad Bhagavatam, which is really the basis for all other understandings in the Krishna consciousness line. We won't go into depth about Srimad Bhagavatam. But then Chaitanya Charitamrita Prabhupada chose to give. He gave some smaller works also, and Nectar of Devotion, a very significant book, and others. But this Chaitanya Charitamrita, he first gave, actually his first book published in the West, Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, gave some selected portions in summary from Chaitanya Charitamrita. But then Srila Prabhupada later chose to give the whole book, which comes to about, well, depend how many volumes, depends on how they slice it up, whether it's 300-page volumes or larger volumes. But it's a substantial, very substantial work. In fact, there was one scholar who came out with an edition later, and he'd worked on it for years and years and years and years. And Prabhupada, as you heard, in 3 years he finished everything. So in Prabhupada's concluding words, very significantly, he talks about experiencing the presence of the spiritual master. One way is by physical presence, but physical presence is sometimes available and sometimes not available. Even when the spiritual master is present in this world, his physical presence may not be so easily available. And eventually, the spiritual master leaves this world, and physical presence is no longer possible. But presence by Vani, or his instructions, is always available, eternally. So Srila Prabhupada taught that we should give more importance to the Vani, to the instructions. And in fact, in his dedication to Srimad Bhagavatam, he dedicated the book to his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and wrote, he lives forever by his divine instructions, and the follower lives with him. Seems simple enough to write those lines, but they reflect a very deep understanding and realized understanding. Srila Prabhupada showed by his personal example that this is the way to associate with the spiritual master, by serving his instructions. And Srila Prabhupada did that. He recounts then something of how he met his spiritual master, how he was defeated by the arguments given by his spiritual master, and how he felt convinced that, yes, this is Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement is in expert hands. And how he received the instruction from the very beginning. Prabhupada told about it another time. He said to spiritual masters, "So you're an educated young man. Why don't you spread Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings in English?" And then again, just days before his spiritual master left, Prabhupada wrote, "Is there some service I can do for you?" And Prabhupada gave, Saraswati Thakur gave the same instruction. I try to spread this message in English. So Prabhupada recounts that first he wasn't able to do much. Then he started the Back to Godhead. And then he, after taking sannyas, completed 3 volumes of Srimad Bhagavatam, and then came to America. Prabhupada told how he'd come to America, why he came to America. He said, my Guru Maharaj sent some disciples, sannyasis, to England, but they couldn't do anything. It was a failure. So Prabhupada thought, well, if I'm going to fail, let me fail in a new place. Tene Brahma Hridaya Hari Kaviye. Prabhupada significantly says that Krishna as Paramatma resides in the heart of every living being, and with all of his associates. Wherever there's Krishna's form, his qualities, his associates also. So therefore Prabhupada said that he felt that his Guru Maharaj was directing him from within the heart what to do. Somehow Prabhupada came to America, and he'd actually begun this writing of Chaitanya Charitamrita in India. He started serializing the book in his Back to Godhead. Only didn't go so far, maybe a few chapters from the Adi Lila, the beginning part. And then he went on to Srimad Bhagavatam and other projects. But then later he took up again the work of Chaitanya Charitamrita from where he'd left off, and completed the entire work. The Prabhupada thanked the disciples who were helping him. Should I tell that story? How we started work. The Prabhupada was being assisted by his devotees who were working with the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust in Brooklyn, New York. We had a place there. And yes, by the time, and we published, I think, first volume of the Adi Lila. And, well, producing a book back then was quite a different task than what we're doing now. Now you everything's done on your computer, on your desktop. Back then, things that we just press a button for were done by hand. Layout was done with pages waxed on the back so that you could put them on a sheet for where they'd be, matching where the text should go on the page. You had a light shining from underneath it, and there's so much that could be said about that, and how you did corrections by slicing and putting things in. anyway, we around that time we moved to Los Angeles. The whole press shifted to Los Angeles, and we'd gotten new equipment. Our original equipment was a mechanical typesetting machine, but we later got a photo typesetting machine, which was state of the art at the time. It's now, those machines might now be seen in museums somewhere. But for us, it was, for anyone at that time, it was advanced technology. And the typesetting was done with a computer, which was an impressive piece of work back then. In fact, we had what do they call them? A tower? Yeah, a tower with a computer in it with flashing lights and buttons and all of that. And well, there's more to it, but anyway, that year Prabhupada came and visited us in Los Angeles. He would regularly visit every year. He would visit New York and then work his way west, unless he was going the other way, in which case he'd work his way east. So he came to Los Angeles, and the press had been newly transplanted there. And it was arranged that Prabhupada would tour the press. We'd been in a loft in Brooklyn, but now we had our own building around the corner from the Los Angeles Temple. In fact, we had the building and then some other offices. And the arrangement was that as Prabhupada toured, we would all be in place. We'd all be at work in our stations. So Prabhupada came, and I had a little office, and Prabhupada came and visited that, and Prabhupada came and visited the layout room and the typesetting department and so on. And then, and he was, a small entourage with Tamal Krishna Goswami and Rameshwar Swami and so on. And the next morning, Prabhupada was on his morning walk. Every morning he would walk. And he said to the press manager, Rameshwar, that when I was in India, I was dreaming of something like this. Because Guru Maharaj was very keen to publish books. So I was dreaming of something like this. Then Prabhupada's appreciating, all the arrangements, he said, he noted that we were behind. Prabhupada had translated up through 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. We'd published up through the 4th. And Prabhupada had, by that time, I suppose, finished Chaitanya Charitamrita. And we'd only published maybe 1 volume. So, by Prabhupada's calculation that each volume would be 300 pages, we were 17 books behind. Because Prabhupada went quickly. And it took us, well, we went quickly too. So we were publishing a new book every 2 months. Which, when you consider what it took to publish a book back then, publishing a new book every 2 months was not bad. We thought we were steady at it. Every 2 months, another book. So then Prabhupada on his walk, he said, so I was dreaming of something like this, and now you have all this arrangement. But you're 17 books behind. I think you can finish those 17 books in 2 months. And Rameshwar said to Srila Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, that's just impossible. You can't do that. And Prabhupada said that impossible is a word in a fool's dictionary. So, and if you can't do it, what is the use of your being American? So Rameshwar saw that Prabhupada meant business. And he got together with the press manager, the actual manager, production manager, Radha Ballabhadas, and they started planning what they would have to do to finish 17 books in 2 months. And they called in some help, especially some additional typists. I was a good typist. I could do 70 words a minute, back on an ordinary manual typewriter. I was pretty good, but they brought in this one god sister. I think she was 95 words a minute, something like that. You'd look at her hands while she was typing and all you'd see was a blur. So we brought in some extra typists, some extra people to help with layout, a few extra people in that way. And they told that, Srila Prabhupada, if you stay here in Los Angeles, then we can consult you as questions come up. And that way, we'll be able to do things. And Prabhupada agreed, although he didn't stay very long. And the typesetting equipment was good. It could handle the workload. But all the devotees had to be just in complete, what's the word? I hate to say completely in gear, but that's basically it, that we had to be completely immersed in doing this work if we were going to meet the deadline. And so we were. The editors, the Sanskrit editors, English editors, the proofreaders and the typists, the layout men, the artists, because the books had to be illustrated. Everybody was just fully immersed in trying to accomplish what Prabhupada had wanted. And it meant that we were working around the clock. We were literally working around the clock. So the typists would be working in shifts. I think they were still working in shifts. Yeah, because we didn't have so many machines. Each machine was expensive, the input machines. So we'd be working on an around-the-clock 24-hour schedule. The layout men were well, for our morning program, we used to attend Mangal Arati, chant our rounds. I think that was it. And we'd start work. I don't remember whether we attended class or not. We did have breakfast. But to keep things speeding down the line, you could be awakened at any time, day or night, to edit a paragraph or to proofread some pages or whatever might be required. that's the way in which we were working. We were just working full out, full on, full out to produce Chaitanya Charitamrita. Well, it happened. We were able to deliver books to Srila Prabhupada in Vrindavan 2 months later. And Srila Prabhupada was satisfied. The business of the spiritual master is to engage his disciples in the service of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada certainly engaged us. There was a little sign when I first joined the temple. In fact, the mother of one of our god sisters, Balai Dasi, had embroidered this little sign. And it said, if you have no engagement, then chant Hare Krishna or read scripture. If you're always engaged in Krishna consciousness, then you can't fall into Maya. So any of us who might have wanted to fall into Maya at that time just didn't have enough time. There was no opportunity for Maya because we were just too busy for Maya. And that was Srila Prabhupada's mercy. Srila Prabhupada himself, coming back to Chaitanya Charitamrita, he wrote in his diary on the Jaladuta, the ship on which he'd come to America, that he himself was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita, and that was the nectar for him that was keeping him going. Yes, Chaitanya Charitamrita just distills the philosophy, the teachings, the relishable essence of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada was reading it when he came over on the ship, and then 1965, so 9 years later, he made the whole book available for the world. And now, of course, it's been translated into French and German and Italian and Russian. And where do we stand on Dutch? Oops, Martin.
2 months.
Oh, when? We're working on it.
Okay.
2 months.
2 months. And people all over the world are relishing Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and taking up, of course, or having taken up the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So these are all extraordinary. Prabhupada mentioned the disciples who were determined to help me. So he was determined to serve his spiritual master. And when we're determined to serve in the same line, then so much mercy is available from Srila Prabhupada and all the acharyas from Krishna. Maybe we'll see if there's some questions. Yes?
How can you increase the determination to serve Srila Prabhupada?
How do we increase the determination to serve Srila Prabhupada? Well, one way is by reading his books, because the more we read, the more we can appreciate, and the more we appreciate, the more we'll want to serve. One of my godbrothers, Patita Pavana Prabhu, who's now living in Bulgaria, was present at a lecture that Prabhupada gave in temple in Brooklyn. And he said, Srila Prabhupada, we have a great desire to distribute your books. Srila Prabhupada said, just keep that desire. So if we start with some desire to render service, and then we do render service, then Dadami Buddhi Yogam Tam. Then Krishna gives more intelligence how to do more service. If we just do some service, then it may be big, it may be small, but then Krishna gives more intelligence here, do more. And so by the grace of Krishna and by the grace of the spiritual master, we can develop increasing determination. And by detaching practically, in terms of things, by detaching ourselves from useless topics and useless engagements. In the 4th canto, Sanat Kumar says that these engagements in sense gratification are like reeds that grow on the side of a bank of a pond, like bamboo or some kind of reeds. And the reeds will suck up all the water. So when we divert our attention for useless topics and useless engagements, then it sucks up our energy. And then when we're looking for energy for service, where did it go? So if we're always engaged in Krishna consciousness, then we can't. So by being always engaged, always doing something for Krishna, we'll develop more appreciation, more determination. And by association with other devotees, we're also determined. Our determination can grow. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Also by remembering Srila Prabhupada and how determined he was. The example is there before us. Yes?
I'm just curious, the Bengali from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, how similar is it to modern Bengali?
How close is the Bengali of Chaitanya Charitamrita to modern Bengali? Well, first of all, I should confess I don't speak Bengali or know Bengali. But from what I understand from Bengali speakers, there is some it's certainly intelligible, but it's you once recognize it as being old. So I'm not quite sure, is it old like Shakespeare is for English speakers today? Or is it old like Chaucer is for English speakers today? I'm not quite sure how to gauge it because I'm not a Bengali speaker. But I do know that it's not contemporary Bengali.
So did Srila Prabhupada translate it from the original, or was he taking later editions?
No, from the original.
From the original.
Yeah. And he had the commentaries of his spiritual master and Bhaktivinoda Thakur also. So he's following those commentaries as he goes along.
Sorry, those commentaries were in modern Bengali? Or
Excuse me?
Were those commentaries in modern Bengali or also in...
Yeah, because they were modern. Yeah. The commentaries, Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur were quite recent. So that part was, modern Bengali.
No, because they wrote, especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote so much in English also.
He?
He wrote so much in English also, especially Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
Yes, Bhaktivinoda Thakur also wrote in English, but he wrote quite a lot in Bengali. Yeah. Yes.
So was Srila Prabhupada copying? Was he reading the palm? Was he reading palm leaf manuscripts and then?
Was Prabhupada reading palm leaf manuscripts? No. There are, but he wasn't using that. Gaudiya Math, his spiritual master's institution, had published Chaitanya Charitamrita and other works with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary. So Prabhupada worked from that. Yeah.
So were these publications of the Gaudiya Math the old Bengali or were they modernized?
Sorry?
The publications of the Gaudiya Math, were they with the old Bengali or were they modernized, the translations?
The publications of Gaudiya Math, were they old Bengali or modernized? Well, they, as far as I know, they published the original text of the book as it is. They wouldn't have revised it to make it more modern. They published it as found in the old manuscripts. But then, of course, the commentary would have been contemporary. Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Oh, well, I'm thinking of it, by the way. The Bengali that went into the books was just cut and pasted from some other edition. You know, we didn't typeset the Bengali. We had no capability. So we, as we say, stripped it in. We just cut it and pasted it in place. Yes.
Thank you so much, Maharaj, for this class. And I was wondering also what Saurabh said about how do we cultivate determination to serve Srila Prabhupada, and that it's actually so beautiful that the more you appreciate by reading, the more that you actually cultivate the desire to serve. And I was wondering, because this Kartik, which is now 10 days, it seems like it's been an avalanche of service and it's been really, really nice.
Okay.
But at the same time, I also feel like, oh yeah, but there's also work, you know, my regular job to do. And I feel a little bit conflicted in the sense that
We have to connect our regular activities to devotional service. Is that called a Ropya Siddhi? That's the term, right? Yeah, it means you take the work that you have to do, and to some things we say, okay, I'm going to, you know, this is Krishna conscious service. I'm going to chant, I'm going to hear, I'm going to distribute books, whatever. Then there are things where it's not really direct devotional service of that sort. It's the stuff I have to do. I have to feed my kids. I have to work. I have to cook. I have to, you know, do all those kind of things. I have to pay my taxes. So what does that have to do with Krishna? But you dedicate it to Krishna. You take that same work, and I think it's described as like planting a flag on it. You take that work, and now this work will also be for Krishna, because it helps me to perform my devotional activities. So rather than see it as something else that I do, it becomes part of my devotional service. Now, of course, I don't get the same relish from, you know, my office work for my boss that I get from joining the kirtan, but it's also connected with Krishna. And that's the art of all work, is to connect it with Krishna. And then it becomes spiritualized. Is that okay? Yes?
Maharaj, can I ask a bit theoretical question?
Yes.
When we read the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam or the CC, then we come across terms like incarnation or expansion or plenary portion or portion of a plenary portion. And I'm a bit confused.
Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Yeah. So I know that everything comes from Krishna, but it's, I think, on purpose that these terms are used in the verses. Can you explain a bit what the difference is and how we should look at it?
Yeah, it's like it's a technical science in one sense. It's or shall we say, a refined science. It's something sophisticated in one sense. It has great detail and precision, and so the question is, how do we convey that? These ideas, there's an idea there when we say a plenary portion. It means something. But the words would originally be in Sanskrit. Angsa, for example, is a plenary portion. Avatar is an incarnation. And there are all sorts of other words that are there. And it requires, they of course require English equivalents. And it's up to the translator to meditate on those words, think about those words, and say, how do we get this idea across in the target language that we're trying to reach people? So Prabhupada, some of these terms I know, the English terms he just took from his spiritual master. There may have been other terms that he worked out on his own. I don't really know. His spiritual master had employed quite a sophisticated vocabulary. And when you read Srila Prabhupada's writings, they're much simpler in the words used, which makes our life a lot easier. So Prabhupada thought about what he was writing, and used terms to get across the ideas. And certainly the idea that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that's the headline point in all of Prabhupada's books. And people have asked me, what that term means, especially translators. How do we translate the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And there have been bad attempts at it where Supreme Personality of Godhead, like Paramatma, comes out as a ghost and, all sorts of things like that. But I actually had a theory that I used to, or my own understanding, that Godhead, is quite a philosophical term. No one prays to Godhead, they pray to God. But philosophers talk about the Godhead. And the term tends to be used often impersonally. Godhead is the ultimate truth, but not necessarily personal. But Supreme Personality of Godhead, well, that certainly makes it clear that we're not talking about an abstruse, nameless, formless entity, but we're talking about a person and the Supreme Person. So I thought it was really brilliant of Srila Prabhupada to put together this somewhat abstract term Godhead with Supreme Personality, which makes clear that we're talking about a particular individual person. So I appreciated that term, Supreme Personality of Godhead, from that point of view. And years later, I came across a conversation between Srila Prabhupada and one of my godbrothers, Yogeshwara Prabhu. And he just put the question, he was working with the French books, and he just put the question to Srila Prabhupada directly, what does it mean that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And Prabhupada said, Godhead means that he is the head God. So much for my theorizing. Is that all right? Okay. Yeah, still?
I still don't see the difference between an incarnation or an expansion.
Oh, okay. You want to ask about those particular terms.
Yeah.
Incarnation means avatar. Well, first of all, this idea of expansion is already quite technical. You know, what does it mean that something's an expansion? Expanding, we think of balloons expanding and so on. But, all right, expansion means that Krishna, in terms of Krishna, an expansion is, well, when we talk about different forms of Krishna, Krishna has the capability to appear in more forms than one at the same time. And he does this through expansions. So the plenary expansions are the fully empowered expansions that bear full power. And in Vaikuntha, there's many such expansions. On the Vaikuntha planets, each planet has a form of Krishna presiding, and that's a plenary expansion of Krishna. And if you look on the cover of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, you see this depicted. So many planets with expansions. Mm-hmm. Living entities are also expansions of Krishna, but they're called Vibhinamsa, or separated, tiny expansions. But we're expanded from Krishna the way the sunshine is expanded from the sun. Now the avatars, or incarnations, the incarnations, avatars, the Sanskrit word, are the expansions of Krishna who descend to the material world. Avatar conveys the idea of descending. They're expansions of Krishna who just never descend here. They stay in the spiritual world, so they never become avatars. They're expansions, but not avatars. But some expansions come to the material world, then they're called avatars. Yes.
Since we live in this material world, I always feel like there are days when I am, because of my spiritual practices, I'm very present, very conscious. But then there are also days that even though I want to continue my spiritual practice, something is holding back and I am stuck. Today, I have been feeling stuck for a few days, and then I started reading Power of Now from Eckhart Tolle, which...
Started doing what?
Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I started reading that and it helped me right away.
Which now?
Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle.
Power of Now.
Yeah. And that helped me right away, but sometimes I feel like I might not get the tools at right time.
Yeah.
You know, and then it can be an elongated sine wave, so how to make it more linear, you know, that the material world don't affect you so much.
Well, this is a large question. What do I do so that my practice can be consistent and effective? First, we need to see whether the practice is suitable. I know when I first read Bhagavad Gita, I was reading about sitting postures and so on, and having your eyes half open and half closed and fixed on the tip of your nose and so on. And breathing exercises. And it was intelligible enough. I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I didn't know at the time that it's not just sitting and breathing a certain way, but it's part of a very rigorous system of spiritual practice. The yogis used to go to the forest and they would meditate for 10,000 years. They'd observe strict celibacy. They'd sit in a secluded holy place, and they'd actually see Krishna within their hearts in their mature meditation. We can't really do that. Even Arjuna, the original hearer of Bhagavad Gita, after hearing about the yoga system, he said, I can't do it. It's impractical for me. So the first thing we need to see is whether the practice is fitting. Is it suitable for the present time? And is it, what should we say, an authentic or authoritative practice? Because, I may recommend something, or the guy down the street may recommend something, or my psychiatrist might recommend something, or my spiritually inclined friends might recommend something, or someone who's written some books might recommend something, or a person who gives lots of lectures. But where's it coming from? Where's it coming from? I can pull, and often where it's coming from is sort of a synchronistic method. I pull something from here, and I pull something from there, and I put together a method, a practice, a way, a teaching, but it's largely of my own creation. That's the approach that many teachers take. And that will involve the imperfections and idiosyncrasies of the particular teachers. And that may make things more difficult for us. The way that Srila Prabhupada took was to take teachings that descend through the parampara, the chain of teachers in the sampradaya system, or the system of descending spiritual understanding. That's sort of the opposite of the ascending method, in which I sort of pull it together from my side. I take what's coming down. That's our method in the Krishna consciousness movement. We take what's coming down ultimately from Krishna and from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna in another form. And the practice is meant for Kali Yuga, the present age, particularly because it's simple. Meditation now in the yoga system, too hard. Temple worship on a grand scale. They used to do it in big Indian temples, too hard. Sacrifices. No one's there to chant the mantras, right? But chanting Hare Krishna, that works. And we see that it works because all over the world people are chanting Hare Krishna and experiencing transformation of heart, a transformation of consciousness. It's doable anywhere, any place, any time, any country, anybody. And our experience is that this chanting of Hare Krishna is the suitable practice. It's also mentioned in the Upanishads as the suitable practice for Kali Yuga. So our recommendation would be just take this chanting Hare Krishna more and more and more and more, and you'll feel the power of Krishna now. Something else? Is that okay? Shall we stop here? Yeah.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Maybe I'll save a few words about these other books. There's the red book and the blue book. The red book, Vanity Karma, is a running commentary on the biblical book of Ecclesiastes, which is really a profound book. It questions, well, it begins with the declaration that everything in the world is meaningless, that life has no profit, no benefit, that everything is like vapor. And then the author goes on to demonstrate, to show by arguments that this was so by his own experience and his own understanding. And he touches upon many other topics as he goes along. It's not a long book, 12 short chapters. And by virtue of its profundity and the essential nature of its subject matter, I thought that this was a suitable book to bring into dialogue, as it were, with the Bhagavad Gita and our Vedic teachings. So that's what Vanity Karma is. It's a bringing together of these two books in an interweaving, you can say, of one with the other. And it's intended for a broad audience. And one doesn't have to know anything about Bhagavad Gita. One doesn't have to know anything about the Bible. One has to be literate. One has to be able to read English at basically in America we would say high school level. What is it, 12th standard or something like that? Anyway, anyone who can read decent English, any intelligent young person, should have no problem. Life doesn't have a lot of technical language, and it assumes it's written for the intelligent ignoramus. I have a godbrother who was taught that term in law school. Ignoramus is someone who doesn't know anything about what you're talking about. He's just not familiar with your subject. He doesn't know anything about it. He's ignorant. But the intelligent ignoramus, if you explain it to him, can understand it. So the book is written for the intelligent ignoramus. And there it is. So it's devotees also may like to read it, and especially it's meant to reach an outside audience. And that's the red book. The blue book is explicitly written for devotees in the Hare Krishna movement. It deals with the main thing we do, chanting Hare Krishna and Kirtan, and pulls together various instructions from Srila Prabhupada about that subject matter, because those instructions are often lost or forgotten or unknown, and because a lot of other things come in from Krishna knows where, from all over the place, and after a while they've been around so long that we think that they're really what we're supposed to be doing, when it may not be what we're supposed to be doing. So there's lots of surprises in the book, a few shocks, and a lot of instructions from Srila Prabhupada about the idea of chanting Hare Krishna. Why are we chanting? What should be our mood? What should we chant? So these sort of broad issues. And then there's also very particular things, like, for example, how do you pronounce Gadadhar? Which is we often hear mispronounced as Gadadhar. And Gopinath Prabhu at Radhadesh brought to my attention the other day that Gada, with a short A like that, means disease. So Gadadhar is the bearer of disease. And so what we want is Gadadhar, which is originally, of course, the name of Lord Balaram, because he bears a club, or Lord Vishnu bears a club. A Gadadhar, not the bearer of disease. So the Blue Book is really meant for all the devotees in the Hare Krishna movement. My ambition is that every devotee should have a copy in his hand to refer to draw understanding from, to know what Srila Prabhupada's standards were for kirtan. We may adjust, or we may do whatever we do, but we'll know at least what Srila Prabhupada taught. That's the story on the books.
Okay, thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you for explaining, giving some insight into the books, and please, you take them for yourself, or it's almost Christmas. I used to give all these books as Christmas presents, so please don't hesitate to take some books. And the one about kirtan, I have a question about it, Maharaj. How often, when the kirtan is going on, then they call some devotees to lead the kirtan, and the first question is, can you play harmonium? What is Prabhupada saying about this? Is it essential to call it kirtan?
The harmonium question.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, it's certainly not essential. We can chant Hare Krishna. Even kartals and mridanga aren't essential. We can clap our hands and chant. The main thing, the essential thing, is the holy name of Krishna. The mantra is essential. Everything else is just to help us along. Prabhupada did instruct us that the harmonium is for bhajan, not for kirtan. And you'll find a discussion about that in the book. Then the question goes, well, when is it kirtan? When is it bhajan? And so on. And of course, any of our best kirtan leaders use the harmonium for both. So, but that was the instruction that we got from Srila Prabhupada. And again, I try to avoid in the book saying, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. But these are the instructions that Prabhupada gave us. Now you decide what you can do and what you can't do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So we've come to the end of this part of the program. Maharaj, thank you so much for emphasizing the importance of Chaitanya Charitamrita, especially in this age of Kali, and the importance of Prabhupada. Prabhupada also stressed out the importance of Chaitanya Charitamrita, and I remember how Kadamakarana Swami, my Gurudev, once he put a question to us: if your house is on fire and you have the Bhagavad Gita, you cannot carry anything, so you have to make priorities: the Bhagavad Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita. And practically everybody said the Bhagavad Gita. He said no, take the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because everything is in there. It's so true. So thank you. Now, Maharaj, with your permission, can we start the Damodarastakam? And it would be wonderful and so pleasing to us if you could lead the Damodarastakam.
it would really be great, and it would be pleasing to me. The problem is that I have chronic laryngitis, and so I really don't. I'm doing pretty well that I'm able to speak, but in terms of leading kirtan and bhajans and so on, the vocal cords just don't do the job. The vocal cords just don't do the job anymore.
Yeah. No. I understand, but still, I think about, okay, maybe. Anyhow, yes, I respect it. So, but you join us for the Dhammatas to come before we go, before you leave, isn't it?
Join you? Yes.
You don't have to leave.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to join. This is what we're supposed to do. Kartik, Prabhupada said, is like a sale, because it's said that whatever service we do in Krishna consciousness in the month of Kartik, the benefit is amplified. So Prabhupada says, like a sale, the store advertises half price or get 2 for the price of 1 or whatever. So Prabhupada said, those who are already customers, they'll buy anyway. But just to encourage new business. But in any case, as you said, it's a very special month. And whatever devotional service we can do during Kartik will be special. Thank you.
Shall we now start?